Right, let's go through some of these areas where you think it's going to be the most damaging. I mean, obviously, voting rights are up there, and I should remind people that John Roberts, who presided over the gutting of the Voting Rights Act by essentially blowing up the pre-clearance formula, got his start, or maybe it wasn't quite his start, but that was like a 30-year trajectory, right? I mean, he was in the civil rights division under Reagan.
Well, he was in the Attorney General's office under Reagan, and civil rights was one of his areas. And yes, he became very famous when he got nominated to the Supreme Court. Had written a number of memos opposing the extension of the Voting Rights Act in 1982, and which is and then obviously he had the chance as the Chief Justice to write the opinion and be the fifth vote for the court in. Really, as John Lewis said, ripping the heart out of the Voting Rights Act, the pre-clearance provisions. But there's still a number of other parts of the voting rights apparatus, including the Voting Rights Act, that have been used in the Obama administration to attack restrictive voter ID laws, to attack various other vote suppression laws. And, best case scenario is the new administration comes in and just shuts that litigation down, just says we're not going to participate in this litigation anymore. NAACP, ACLU, all the rest of you continue it, but we're not going to participate. But that's like the best case scenario. The problem is there are a number of legal tools that a new administration will have to actually turn the Civil Rights Division in favor of vote suppression, to use voting rights litigation as an instrument of vote suppression. So one of the statutes I talk about in my article is the National Voter Registration Act, which people call the motor voter law because it's the law that says you get registered to vote when you get a driver's license. It has a provision, it was part of a compromise, it has a provision that says that states have to make efforts to keep their voter rolls current. And on the right, you've heard a consistent drumbeat now for over a decade that the voting rolls in big cities are too bloated. There are people who are on those rolls who don't live there anymore, maybe don't live anywhere anymore, maybe they're dead, maybe they moved away, and that what the Justice Department ought to do is bring suits against those cities to force those cities and those states where those cities are to knock people off the voting rolls, right? I would really worry that a new civil rights division under Trump and under Jeff Sessions, who has his own history with voting rights law, are going to go and really use this tool as a way to knock people off the voting rolls and make it harder for people to vote. And there's sort of issues like that on down the line, but
Just
that's
explain.
a real concern.
So, for instance, okay, so they go to Milwaukee, let's say, and they say,
Yeah.
we've randomly sampled 2,000 people on your voting roll, and we found an incidence of 1%, 2% of dead people. What can they do at that point to Milwaukee? They say, like, you need to institute a program where you send a letter to the House, and if you don't hear anything back in a week, you've got to eliminate them for the voting. I mean, that's a little bit extreme, but is that the type of thing that they could theoretically do?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're thinking about it in sort of the right general way, right? So they could. So this is a piece of the law that is very unclearly written, which unfortunately creates a lot of opportunity for mischief. And what with the right kind of judge, right meaning right wing kind of judge, they could go in and get an order against a city or against a state, saying, unless people do a lot of things to let you know that they're still there, you have to knock them off the voting rolls. And we know both from the way voting behavior works and from the way bureaucracies work that there are going to be a lot of people who are on the voting rolls who actually are registered voters, but may not vote all the time, and who will end up getting knocked off the rolls. And when they go to try to vote at a later election, they're going to get a nasty surprise, which is that they're not eligible to vote. Right. And so that's one of the real concerns.
Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Over. Subscribe.